If your nights feel harder than your days, if you can be good all day long, but once dinner is over, something in you switches. The cravings get louder, your thoughts get messier, your resolve disappears, well then this video is for you. For years I thought my nighttime cravings were a willpower problem. I thought I lacked discipline, I thought I was too emotional, I thought something was wrong with me. But the truth is, my nighttime cravings weren't about willpower at all. They were more so about hormones. And once I understood that, not in a surface level, Instagram kind of way, but in a body-based way, everything changed. Not overnight, not magically, but fundamentally. So today I want to walk you through what was actually happening in my body, why emotions felt so intense at nights, how hormones and emotional eating are deeply connected, and what helped me stop feeling like nights were something I had to survive. Now, what nighttime cravings actually felt like. I want to be really specific here because vague descriptions don't help anyone. During the day, I felt capable. I ate the meals, I made reasonable choices, I told myself I was back on track. But at night, especially after dinner, there was this kind of shift. I wasn't physically hungry in the classical sense. It was a restlessness in my body, a buzzing in my chest, a sense of needing something but not truly knowing what. Sometimes it was sugar, sometimes it was something crunchy, sometimes I just needed more food, even I was already full, even if I was already full. And the more I tried to talk myself out of it, you're not hungry, you already ate, you will regret this, the more urgent it became. What I didn't understand back then was that my body wasn't asking for food. My body was asking for regulation. Food was just the fastest tool it had access to. Nighttime cravings don't come out of nowhere. Evenings are when stimulation drops, distractions fade, adrenaline wears off, your nervous system finally has space to feel. All day long, you're holding things together. You're responding, performing, containing emotions, managing stress, and then the night comes. Your system finally slows down and everything you've been holding in rises to the surface. And now here's the key part. If your hormones are already dysregulated, your capacity to tolerate those emotions is lower. So stress feels heavier, loneliness feels sharper, overwhelm feels louder. Food becomes the fastest regulator, not because you're weak, but because your body is trying to stabilize itself. And this is why nighttime cravings feel different from daytime hunger. They feel more urgent, more emotional, more compulsive. And that's not a mindset issue, that is biology. And this is the part I wish someone had sat me down and explained to me slowly when I was younger. Because hormones don't just affect your cycle, they affect appetite, cravings, stress tolerance, sleep, emotional regulation, how strong urges feel in your body. So let's break this down so you really understand each key hormone. Starting with cortisol, the stress hormone, the stress loop that it creates. For years, my body lived in a constant state of low-grade stress. Not dramatic stress, just always busy, always mentally on, like almost 24/7, even in the night, pushing through tiredness, normalizing exhaustion. My body adapted, but that didn't mean it was okay. Chronically elevated cortisol makes the body crave quick energy. Sugar and refined carbs temporarily lower stress hormones. So at night, when my system finally slowed down, cortisol was still high, and my body wanted relief, and food provided that relief. Not because I lacked control, but because my body was trying to survive. Then there was blood sugar instability, so moving on to insulin, because that was big for me. Because I also wasn't eating enough earlier in the day. I delayed meals, I underestimated my needs. I relied on coffee to carry me on certain days. So by the evening, my blood sugar crashed because I was not eating enough, and low blood sugar triggers cortisol. And cortisol triggers cravings, as we just learned. And that combination creates urgency. And once I started eating enough earlier, like real meals with protein, carbs, fiber, nighttime cravings softened dramatically. They didn't disappear overnight, but they stopped feeling like emergencies. Then moving on to progesterone, or the evening calm, because progesterone has a calming, grounding effect on the nervous system. And when progesterone is low, often from chronic stress or undereating, evenings can feel wired, anxious, unsettled. You know that wired but tired feeling? Well, that was me. Food soothed me or soothed my nervous system when progesterone couldn't. And as my body felt safer, evenings became quieter, not perfect but calmer. And lastly, the hunger hormones and years of dieting, because years of restriction disrupted my hunger and fullness cues, my hunger and fullness hormones, ghrelin and leptin. Even when I ate, my body didn't fully trust that food was available or safe. So cravings lingered. Healing hormones meant restoring trust and not just tightening control that I used to believe from diet culture. And as I mentioned, yes, emotions played a role because, of course, we eat emotionally because of emotions. But emotions weren't the direct cause. They were almost a cause in terms of not handling them properly, which means that they were an amplifier. And when hormones were off, stress hit harder. Emotions felt overwhelming. My coping capacity dropped, and food became the fastest way to regulate. And once my hormones stabilized, my emotional tolerance increased. I could feel an urge without panicking. I could pause. I could choose to handle the emotions with the right support with more ease. And that is the difference that hormonal support made. Before knowing what I'm about to share, I tried seemingly everything: cutting sugar, distracting myself, drinking tea, suppressing urges. All of that treated cravings as the problem, but cravings were the signal. Fighting the signal only made the body louder. So now finally, what actually helped? This is the part most people want to rush. They want the one thing, the one supplement, the one habit, the rule that will make cravings disappear. But what actually helped me wasn't dramatic or extreme. It was a series of small, consistent shifts that told my body one thing over and over again: you are safe now. And that safety is what allowed my hormones to settle. And remember, before we get into it, this is not a checklist you have to follow perfectly, but rather some kind of principles or anchors that changed how my body responded to food and stress. So number one, I stopped undereating earlier in the day. This mattered more than I expected. For a long time, I didn't think I was restricting. I ate breakfast, I ate lunch, well, sort of. But in reality, I was eating lightly, pushing through hunger, sometimes relying on caffeine, telling myself I would eat properly later. So by the time evening came, my body was already in a deficit. Low blood sugar doesn't feel like hunger right away. It feels like irritability, that hangry feeling, hungry and angry. It feels like anxiety, restlessness, that sudden, intense cravings. So once I started eating enough earlier in the day, real meals, not just something small, my evenings changed. Not because I forced myself not to crave, but because my body wasn't desperate anymore. That alone took the edge off the nighttime cravings in a way nothing else ever had. Then I reduced the stress signals instead of adding more healthy pressure. This was a big shift for me because my instinct was always to add something, add more workouts, more rules, more structure, more control. But my body didn't need more input. It needed less threat. So instead of asking, what else should I be doing? I started asking, what can I soften? That looked like gentler movement when I was already exhausted, not forcing myself to work out despite being tired. Early nights instead of pushing through when I was tired. Fewer intense workouts, more rest without earning it. This wasn't about giving up on health, it was about giving my hormones the break they needed. When stress signals went down, the cravings followed. Then I stopped trying to eliminate nighttime eating and focused on regulation. This is important. I didn't make nighttime eating the enemy. I didn't make binge eating, emotional eating the enemy. I stopped telling myself, you can't eat that at night. You shouldn't want this. You've already eaten enough. Because every time I did that, my nervous system escalated. Instead, I shifted the goal. The goal was no longer, don't eat. The goal became, how can I help my body feel calmer right now? Sometimes that meant warmth, sitting down, slowing my breath, changing rooms, reassurance. And yes, sometimes it still meant food, but when food wasn't loaded with shame or urgency, it stopped spiraling. That alone changed the entire experience of my nighttime overeating. Because in the end, the nighttime eating wasn't the big problem that I thought it was. It's the shame and the guilt spiral that happens after that the actual real problem. Then I added nervous system support before cravings peaked. This was subtle but powerful. Instead of waiting until cravings felt out of control, I started supporting my system earlier in the evening. Things like dimming the lights, slower transitions after dinner, fewer screens, even just blue light blocking glasses, gentler routines. Not perfectly, not every night, but enough that my body started to associate evenings with downshifting instead of tension. And this also helped me improve my sleep, which then helped improve the stress and all of that. So when your nervous system feels supported, hormones follow, cravings lose their intensity. Then I also removed shame from the equation because this changed everything. This part doesn't get talked about enough actually. Shame raises cortisol. Cortisol fuels cravings. So every time I judged myself for wanting food at night, I was literally making the problem worse. When I stopped treating the cravings as a personal failure and started treating them as information, my body softened. Curiosity lowered stress. Compassion lowered urgency. And that created space for real change. And just a note on compassion here. We often think that compassion leads to letting yourself go, but that is more so indulgence than it is compassion. But yeah, I don't want to go on a tangent, so let's move on with the last one. I let this whole thing be a gradual thing instead of a demanding results instantly. So this wasn't a 7-day reset. It wasn't a 30-day challenge. It was a slow recalibration. Some nights were calmer right away, others weren't, but over time something shifted. Cravings stopped feeling so loud, so urgent, so all-consuming. And that's how I knew my hormones were healing, not because cravings disappeared entirely, but because they no longer controlled me. And I have to say, none of this worked because I tried harder. It worked because my body finally felt supported. When hormones stabilize, emotional tolerance increases, urges soften, regulation becomes easier, and food stops being the only coping tool your body trusts. And as my hormones healed, something deeper shifted. I stopped seeing myself as someone who just can't control herself at night. I became someone who trusted her body, someone who didn't fear evenings, someone who could feel an urge and stay present. That identity shift didn't come from mindset work alone. It came from my body finally feeling supported and safe. And if nighttime cravings are your hardest moment, please hear this. You don't need more discipline, you don't need more rules, you don't need to try harder. Your body might actually need support. Hormones, stress, emotions, they are deeply connected. And when you work with that connection instead of fighting it, things will soften and things will get easier. So if this resonated and you want more grounded conversations about hormone, emotional eating, and body trust, come find me on Instagram. This is where I share daily insights and practical support. The link is down in the description below. And if this video helped you feel seen, like it gave language to something you've been struggling to explain, please hit the like, subscribe, and maybe even the notification bell. And tell me in the comments, do your nighttime cravings feel more physical, emotional, or both? Remember, you're not broken, your body's communicating. So lots of love, and I will see you in the next video.